Welcome back to Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Joel Brice. As I record this, it's late December, and we're locked in ice here in North Dakota. As I was putting away my warm weather hunting equipment for the year this past weekend, I found myself daydreaming about sunshine, warmer days, and another passion of mine, baseball. And then it hit me. I've been saving an incredible episode for just such an occasion. Last year, I was joined by Patrick Gaylord, an adult onset hunter and a former pro baseball player turned renowned coach. We discussed the positive and negative aspects of youth athletics and explored how the pressures of modern life, travel sports, and technology like YouTube and video games are both shaping the next generation and competing with hunting for kids' time and attention. Patrick offers an insightful perspective on how to connect kids to hunting, even in this fast-paced, screen-focused, often too busy era. And of course, we'll touch on his own journey from growing up in Texas to playing baseball at the University of Houston and ultimately coaching high-level prospects in Fargo, North Dakota, where he found a renewed passion for hunting. So stick around as we discuss hunter recruitment, the dynamics of a hunting family, and talk a little baseball in between. Ready to think warm thoughts? Let's get started. Patrick, welcome to the Delta Waterfowl podcast. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too. You're in Fargo.
Yes.
Fargo, North Dakota. Bismarck, North Dakota. Just so we don't bury the lead of where we're going here, Patrick, is that, Delta Waterfowl, we call ourselves the Duck Hunters Organization. And every year to so many years, large or smaller reports come out about hunter numbers. And the overall trend, I think a lot of hunters who experience hunting, they say, geez, there's hunters everywhere. There's no way hunters are declining. But hunters are declining. In particular, duck hunters are declining. And I know you're not a huge waterfowler, more of a big game guy, but you are a longtime athlete. You train baseball athletes now.
Yep. Baseball, softball.
So, from Texas, a baseball player, made it all the way to independent
Indie ball. So like the league that the Red Hawks are in, it was a different league in South Texas.
Okay, but that's considered pro ball, right?
Yep. We get paid.
Gotcha.
Not well, but we get paid.
Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about is, I think, Patrick, we talk about hunters and, like I was mentioning before, state agencies or big conservation groups or the government tend to talk about hunters like they're one person. Hunters are on the decline. Hunters are important for funding conservation. Hunters are important for political advocacy, right? The non-hunters or anti-hunters, we have to have a big number of hunters to fight off those movements. And I would agree they're true. Wouldn't you agree that's all true?
Yeah, I got no problem with that. I do think it's true.
Yeah.
I think when you start seeing numbers like what you're talking about, where you see numbers declining and people start talking about, well, we see hunters everywhere. Yes, because you are a hunter. Those are the people that you hang around. If somebody came to me and said baseball player numbers are declining, I wouldn't agree with it because all I hang around are baseball guys. I hang around baseball and softball players all the time. And I see countless kids in here every day, so I'd tell you you're lying.
Yeah, I would lie to. Well, and that's the thing, and the numbers don't lie, right? And it's not like there's fewer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not like there's fewer baseball fields. I don't know. I doubt there's fewer baseball fields. It seems to be
there's probably more.
Yeah, probably more. And so I think in the hunting side, I think when people say, "Oh, there's all these hunters at the spots that I go to, and competition has gone through the roof," I'd say, sure, I agree with you. But there's actually, there's an indication that the number of areas for people to go hunting has declined. Right?
Absolutely.
Cities growing, people buying land and posting it for their own use, guides and outfitters. Heck, man, from being from Texas, you could speak on that better than anybody. So
Texas is, the last time I checked, and this was years ago, probably 5 years ago, it was upwards of 95% private. Now Texas is huge, so that 5% is a big chunk of land, yes. But when you're talking about 90% of all land being private, you have to know somebody in order to hunt, or you have to pay somebody in order to hunt. You have to go to a guide or an outfitter or know somebody that has private land to get on it. There's just not a ton of public land opportunity to go down there. It's just not there.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. I've always lived in the north. I've lived where at least there's actually a fairly large percentage of the rural landowners will let you access their property for some
Right.
type of
Yeah.
hunting, knock on a door. I mean, yeah, you being from Texas, now that the Midwest, I think it's
Right.
probably a bit of a shock to be able to go and knock on somebody's door or ask permission from a friend.
Even the public land. Like I was up at Brewer Dam this past weekend, Brewer Lake. There's a management land, 1,000 acres all around. Beautiful land. Valleys, hills, trees, water, corn, everything you could ask for looking for deer. Like I don't remember that happening in Texas. I don't remember those opportunities in Texas. Like the public land up here and the plots land and everything else, it gives people more of an opportunity to get out and do it. You just have to want to do it at that point. Like
Yeah.
when I got to college and actually got more into hunting, the reason one of the nicety of it was a guy that I knew, the old fable story of the grandpa with the great land and that kind of stuff. Well, he was it. He had 500 acres of land, raised cattle, great hunting land. We go out there whenever we wanted to. That's not available to everybody down there. Like that was straight luck that I knew this guy and became friends with him.
Yeah, everybody has a story like that. The so and
Yeah,
so, the
absolutely.
friend of a friend, or
Yep.
grandma and grandpa. They're in the nursing home and they haven't sold their property yet. There's all those little nuggets, and what I find when you find one of those, you better hang on to it because you can.
Oh, we treated that guy insanely good.
Yeah, you can
We
lose it
did
as
everything
fast.
we could for that man.
Yeah, you can lose it as fast as you found it. The reason I asked you on the podcast, Patrick, is like took the long way around the barn, which I'm guilty of doing daily, I think, is that again, we tend to lump hunters like this big one group, almost treating them like one person. But as you and I've discussed, hunters make a decision at an individual level, right? You look
Right.
at your life. My life accommodates hunting. My life doesn't accommodate hunting, or I have these pressures of raising kids. But I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, both into sports. I have a job that puts me on the road maybe once a month, I suppose, for professional travel and mix in all the sports. And I look at it and I say, the time that I have available to hunting is not what it was for me 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I have choices to make. But I make the argument, Patrick, and you could definitely agree or disagree on this one, but I'm looking at kids. Kids, I feel like from when I was a kid to now, I feel like kids are under they have a lot more competition for their time. Sports are more serious, which really falls into your
Right.
expertise, but they have social media, they have video games. The family farm might be 3 generations removed now, where,
Yep.
I think a lot of the West, the prairies, the upper Midwest, the farm is a place that maybe your parents went home to, but you don't have that anymore. So you don't have that
Right.
that quick connection to hunting. But you as an athlete, former professional athlete, I really wanted to get your take because I know you have strong opinions on modern day sports. The
Yes.
player development versus trying to win as a team and get trophies and things like that. But a little bit more background on that one, and then I do want to learn more about you. I want the listeners to get a little bit more about you. So of all the reasons that new hunters are created, recruiting inside of your own family is still the number one source of new hunters. And that makes a lot of sense, right? You have 2 kids.
Absolutely. It's something that's passed down.
Yeah, you have 2 kids. You can decide whether or not you want to introduce them to hunting. But once people reach adulthood, which you're an adult, you learn to hunt as an adult. Um, I think it's just a lot more difficult. And I admire people that learn to hunt as an adult. But we're going to go down kind of that rabbit hole of kid activities. But first, Patrick, can you just give us some background again? Feel free to start, where you're from, where, if you learned to hunt from family members, or maybe you had family members that hunted, but you didn't learn from, and then go all the way through where you are right now.
So I grew up in Houston, or just outside of Houston. My mom's from a small town in South North Dakota, and my dad was from San Antonio. But when I was growing up, I grew up in Houston. Okay, and the baseball thing for me, like hunting, was never in my family. My dad was a cop. I understood guns. I knew how to manage guns, but it was more of a safety thing because he was a police officer. There are guns in the house. Um, but I never got into the hunting side. Okay, and Houston was a little different because of the weather. Cold for us is it, and people from up here always laugh at me because it's true. But cold for us was 40 in February when it was raining. Houston's built on a swamp, so it's 100% humidity year round, and that crap for us is freezing cold. Okay, we're used to 90 in April. All right, but I could be out on a baseball field year round if I wanted to, and that was my love. Like I loved doing it. Okay. I had a little ambition to do the football thing when I was probably 13, which was too late. And by that point, I had a little bit of an understanding that I was somewhat good at this sport. So I wanted to keep trying to get better at it. And it wasn't pushed on me. It was pushed to the fact that when I said I wanted to work, I worked. And my parents helped me with that and they drove me through that. Okay. But as far as like hunting goes, I didn't get into it till I was at the University of Houston. And you had you get into the locker room or you get into any organization, you have cliques. And there were cliques that wanted to go to the club every weekend. And I had my fun in college, but that wasn't my thing. I didn't like doing that, right? And you had some cliques that enjoyed golf. Well, I wasn't into golf at that time in my life. I liked watching it, but I didn't like playing it. And I kind of gravitated to the guys that started doing the outdoor thing, started doing the wilderness, going out this guy's farm that we knew. Okay. And then you start getting into the hunting aspect. And for me, at that point, it was more of a competition with myself. Could I get good at this? Because I'd never done it before. Like you see that a lot in athletes where we challenge ourselves or we're trying to get better at something or whatever. Well, I was getting better at baseball, and then this new opportunity came. And for me, it was like, yeah, okay, let's try this. Let's see if I can get good at this. Plus, those were the guys that I just kind of gravitated towards. Like I had more in common with them than I did the other people in the locker rooms. So that's how I kind of got into it. And then I came up here and I got into it a little bit up here, but job took over, started working more. I was still playing pro ball at the time. So I'm traveling to South Texas in the middle or in the summer, in the spring through the fall. Get up here, job takes over. We weren't getting paid a ton playing pro ball. It was more of the opportunity. Getting paid to put a jersey on. I'm going to take that opportunity. And then you come up here and you work. That way you can have a life in the summer when you're playing. So for me, I got a little bit more into the fishing side. Just because it was, again, same thing in the locker room. You get into a group of kids, group of guys. You got some doing this, you got some doing that. And when you have an off day, you try to find something that you want to do with somebody. Well, we like to fish. So that's what we did. We'd go find a small lake around town, go to the Rio Grande, throw cast in the Rio Grande. That was our thing. And then probably 4 or 5 years ago, started getting back into the idea of game hunting, going after whitetail. And a buddy of mine who was actually going to be on here today plays for the Red Hawks. He's just out harvesting, didn't have any service. Alex Dubord. We have a 30-yard area in the back with a bullpen and a weight room and everything else. And he's back there shooting his bow one day. And I was telling him that I used to do it. And then I got a shoulder impingement. And it was the easiest thing to stop because I was right in the middle of playing. I don't want to risk my career for shooting a bow. And he goes, well, you're not playing anymore. Let's go. Get back into it. I'll set you up, take you out. Let's go. And this was 2 years ago. No, this was last year, actually. It was just last year. And so got set up, started relearning how to shoot, started scouting areas, and then I broke my leg. So I couldn't get out last year and actually get into it. But this year it's been a little different. We've been out a couple times now. So it's just it happened organically, but it didn't get passed down to me. It happened because I wanted to fit in with somebody. There's an 18-year-old in college and a couple of juniors and seniors are going out to this guy's land, having a good time. I want to be involved. That's how I got real started into it. That's how I became what I am today.
What were some of the early types of hunts that you guys would go on? Was it
whitetails? Dove's big down there. We used to all kind of dove hunt. We used to deer. They would duck. I never really got into it. I don't know why. Just wasn't what I was doing. It wasn't my thing. I really like dove hunting. Dove hunting was fun, fast, small. It's fun. That was a challenge for me.
It's fun to shoot and
It
shoot a
is.
lot. Yeah.
It is. It straight is.
Yeah. And so tell the listeners what you're doing right now.
So right now I work at a place in Fargo called the FM Ball Yard. We do one-on-one private lessons for baseball players, softball players. We offer camps. We offer fall teams, travel teams to get out and hopefully get seen by people, play good competition, and maybe learn a little baseball along the way. We offer a fall league just for guys that want to stay in town and play baseball. Um, Anything that you can think of baseball, softball related, we try to offer it. We try to get kids in here and get them what they want.
That's great. And you have a wife and 2 kids?
I have a wife and a 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old.
Man, you're right in it.
I am right in it. She's more in it than I am. I give my wife all the credit in the world. I have the kids, and she teaches, so I have the kids from when they get up 7 in the morning. My oldest is going to preschool now twice a week, which was one of the smartest things that Jess ever did. So she was a COVID baby. She wasn't around people other than just close family for a little while. And her form of making friends is just walking up to somebody, sitting down next to them, and giving them a hug, which is very sweet. But in a couple years, it's going to be weird. So we got her involved in some, daycare. So I got him in the morning. My mom, Granny, takes him for a couple hours. Jess gets him at night, gets him in bed, does all the nighttime stuff. So yeah, we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's kind of the theme for me. You brought up the COVID word, so you're the first one. You did it, but
That's
I'll
fine.
I'll say it next. But yeah, I'm just so tired of talking about it. But it literally has worked its way into everybody's life. It's changed
Everybody.
things. Yeah, we're on Zoom. Remember when I asked you want to do phone or Zoom? I wasn't sure. Like, I don't know how many people use Zoom, but it's everywhere. It's how people communicate with families, baseball
It's
meetings,
everything.
different things. It's everywhere.
So before you get it, I'll tell a story about COVID. When Audrey was born, my old man passed away in 2001. Okay. When Audrey was born, my dad was 2 floors above us, just got done with a brain surgery. All of us were tested, and we couldn't go up to see him. We were all in the same hospital.
Wow.
Like it was tough. And then after that, dad died a year later, year and a half later. That was kind of an important moment for us, and we couldn't get up to see the guy. None of the family could come in and see us. We had to wait till we got home for everybody to meet the kids, or meet the kid, not the kids, meet the kid. And that was tough.
Yeah, that was a time that I hope never repeats itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really do. But COVID brings up a part of the conversation. We're talking about hunter number trends. Is when so hunter numbers were declining for years, decades. One of the things, and these are the numbers that I've kind of pointed at, and they've become a real polarizing topic. But the number of waterfowl hunters, when you combine the United States and Canada, it's the lowest number of duck and goose hunters in North America on record. So it's about 60 years. It's crazy. So Canada has lost nearly 3 out of every 4 of its duck hunters, and the United States has lost more than half of its duck hunters since 1970. So something in the world is changing, and I've always predicted, and part of it is just from my own life, right? I had mentioned before, I have kids, and I hunt, and I do all these things, and yeah, I get out a lot, but not nearly as much as I would like to. And if I wasn't so passionate about it, I don't know, I could see the challenges that people would have getting into it.
Absolutely.
But when COVID came along, I think people that think of hunter trends were predicting that hunter numbers would go up. I don't know if people couldn't buy boats, couldn't buy ATVs, they couldn't buy, couldn't access guns, ammunition, all these different things because of such a high demand. And
Right.
we did see a continental increase in hunter numbers. I think it was 5% across the nation was the increase, but some states had 15% increases in license sales and things like that. Fishing saw a huge bump. But I looked at that and I said, why are people doing that? It's because they have time, right? You
Right.
played one too many board games. You can't go anywhere. You can't go to the movies. Well, let's try hunting. Or I went hunting when I was a kid. Let's try it again. Unfortunately, I predicted, and it turns out that I was right, that as soon as COVID disappeared into the background and everyone found a way to use their time again, sports are
Numbers
back,
would
movies are
decline.
back. Yeah, and it is. We've dropped below COVID numbers, and I saw it coming. And like I said, I didn't want it to be the case, but I thought the one reason they came back was because time was created. And there's not a program, not a hunter recruitment program, not a government program in the world that can create time for people, right? And so I think
No,
that's,
absolutely not.
yeah.
Like, and we get into it here. So, like, what I consider my job is developing a baseball player. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about developing to a big league level or a college level or a varsity. I'm trying to develop the baseball player. Develop the baseball player, develop the human. All right. Some guys want to do that nonstop. Some guys, I see kids in the cage here 5 days a week. Not with me, but hitting on their own, working on their craft, doing that kind of stuff. Okay. Well, if that's what he wants to do, what's he going to do? Is he going to do that? Or is he going to go try and arrow a deer? He's going to do that. He's going to stay in here and work on his craft. Okay. Some of that I think does come from program pressure. Sometimes I think it's parental pressure. They want their kids to be good. I think the program wants to win baseball games. So they want their kids to be good. And it starts becoming a strain, not just on the hunting side. That's what we're talking about, but not just on the hunting side. I've seen kids miss family things. I missed family things because we had a tournament that weekend and I couldn't go to auntie's birthday party, right? So yeah, when it comes down to time, and the harsher way to say it is how you manage your time. Can you get all the activities you want done in the amount of time that you have, and that's what I see the struggle being.
In your lifetime, Patrick, do you notice any? Yeah, we can narrow it down to sports and let's do that. But have you noticed any changes in your lifetime or the kids that you work with? Any big changes in the way of society that might suggest that hunter numbers would be declining? Have you seen any big changes?
Electronics.
Electronics?
So again, I'll go to the baseball side. Is it easier to go work on your craft in a batting cage or sit on the Xbox?
Yeah, yeah. The
It's,
Xbox would
it's
be.
easier to sit on the Xbox.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and then switching to the hunting side, like if you, especially the way that I tried to do it. Okay. I like being out in the wood. I like being out in the wilderness. Okay. Like I went last Saturday to Brewer Lake. I wasn't planning on doing anything other than scouting the area. Where am I going to set up next weekend? Where do I want to go? I'll sit for a little while, pick a spot I might be able to see something right now, just see it, and then move. Right, get out on the road, move, try to find something. Um, but what's easier, doing that, carrying a backpack, carrying a bow, being out in the wilderness, walking around, or sitting at home in front of an Xbox? It's just easier. It's faster entertainment. It's easier to do. And we see it in the baseball world. Like, I got no problem with video games. I played them. I was part of the generation that came up with Nintendo, and then we went on to Sega. Like, I played video games, but I that's not what I wanted to do. That was just something to pass some free time when I had
Hmm.
it. And now it's becoming, even at the adult level, in college and pro ball, like video games are massively prevalent. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the other stuff. And now I think with how accessible it is, you just see it. It's so much more prevalent.
Do you have any advice on how to, as a father of two who probably aren't into video games yet, do you have any thoughts on how to manage that?
Well, I have some thoughts. I don't know how well they'll be taken. Like, and again, if me and my wife had this conversation all year or all the time. I have a 3-year-old, we have a 3.5-year-old and 1.5-year-old. How are we going to raise these girls? Okay. And I can never fault a parent for raising their kids the way they want to raise them or the way they think is right. Okay. I can have my own opinions on it. But I can't fault you for that. Everybody, we're talking about hunters guiding their own path and getting introduced and everything else. Well, as a parent, you're the same point. We didn't get a handbook when Audrey was born. We got advice from people. Okay. But like we have a rule, no tablet. We don't give our kid a tablet. We'll teach her once it becomes useful in school because it is in school. We're going to teach her how to use one. Yes. But no tablet. When I'm home with the girls, will I throw a movie on every now and then? Yeah. I need to get stuff done too. Okay. But no tablet. I don't necessarily limit screen time, but they're always doing activities. Like we're out in the world. Do I want Audrey to try to play softball? Yeah. Is she hates it? Am I going to force it down her throat? No. Do I think I could probably help her along the way? Yes. Just the same way with volleyball. Like you have to introduce your kids to stuff. We get into this a lot because Jess is a Spanish teacher, and there's a Spanish immersion program in Moorhead where you take your elementary school age kids, put them in this immersion program where they can learn Spanish from the start.
Huh.
And for me, when she started talking about it to me, I don't get the value of it because I'm not a language guy. And then she starts explaining it to me. I'm like, absolutely, get her in it. As soon as she can get her in it. Because the worst case scenario, she goes, I hate it. And then we get her back into a normal school. Best case scenario, she's 5 steps ahead of everybody else when they start learning Spanish, which is a great tool in this world. Like you have to introduce your kids to these things. Like, my old man again never did the hunting thing. He never introduced me to it. He introduced me to the fishing side of it, but never the hunting side. He wasn't a hunter. So when I got into pro ball and started doing more of the fishing and started doing more of these things, buddies and me, when we went fishing, we had a day off. We'd go to, like I said, we'd go down to the Rio Grande on the American side, or we'd go to South Padre Island, cooler full of beer, cooler full of food, find a cheap hotel room, cast and reel all day, just throwing crap out into the ocean. We're not catching anything, but it's fun, you know? But that it got introduced to me because that's what my dad did in the 70s with his buddies. They'd go to Galveston and do the same thing. So, like, how to get kids involved in stuff is introduce it to them. If you have the opinion that your child is playing too many video games, take it away, insert X other thing in there. And if they don't like that, try something else. If they don't like that, try something else. We live in a world where opportunities for kids, I'm a little bit younger than you, are far greater than when I was growing up. Exponentially greater than when my parents were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Keep introducing stuff to them. Something's going to stick. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I can't fault a parent for raising their kid a certain way. We don't get a handbook. We don't get a guidebook. You got to go through. You have to go through more to become a rodeo clown than you do a parent. Like
There's not a
you have to
class,
go through
right?
an
Yeah.
education to get that stuff, but you don't have to do it to be a parent. I can't fault you for how you raise your kid. I may have an opinion on it. Most of the time, I'll keep that opinion to myself. But introduce some things. Let's see what happens.
No, I agree with that completely. The technology side, yeah, you're right. You could feed the kid a phone, feed him a tablet, put him in their room, forget about him, put him on the couch. The one thing I actually have found that the telephone is a great, I'll call it a weapon for hunter recruitment, for recruiting a kid. So
I don't doubt that.
Well, here's what I found. So I grew up hunting ducks, grouse, deer, turkeys at a later age, but I remember I loved going duck hunting because it was action packed and I was always doing something. There was something flying around. I was chasing something. I could talk. I could make noise. There were a lot of snacks. I loved deer hunting too, but I remember enduring deer hunting.
Right.
And I'm like, sit on a stump, sit in a tree stand for 3 hours, hoping a deer would come by. And when I was a kid, a lot of times a deer didn't come by. Right. So that was something that I feel like I endured it until it became mine. Well, with my own kids, and it's a tip that I would encourage people to take, they tend to say, no cell phone while hunting. And I'm like, you know what? As an adult, if I'm sitting in the deer stand or I'm sitting on a hillside, when my life is stressful and life is noisy, I crave that 3-4 hour sit of just nothingness, right? It's my time to think.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, but you bring your kid with you and they're like, it's you have to view it from their standpoint. So what I started doing, taking my kids deer hunting, I'd let them, if I want to sit there for 3 hours, I'd let them have their phone for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Right.
And then for that last hour would be phone free. So I use the phone to get them out there, to get them through what would have been the real boring, suffering part.
And now we may see a deer in this last half hour. Now
Yeah.
you need to focus in and let's see what we can do.
Yep. And they do. And now what? As 17 and 14-year-olds, guess what? Their phones are off. They're in their pocket. They're
Yep.
looking around because now it's theirs instead of it
Yep.
being my activity. So to me, it was a nice little bridge. But yeah, if they're sitting there, watching a movie and they're not seeing deer come by, then what's really the point? Then they're just,
Yeah, absolutely.
then I'm just babysitting, right? And you don't
Right.
babysit your own kids. But anyway, so I guess so there's that technology side and competition for time, but I feel, and now we're getting right into maybe it's kind of the meat of it. I feel that sports have changed. I'm not necessarily saying for better or for worse, but they've certainly changed. Do you feel like they've changed in your lifetime before I muddy the waters?
Yes and no. I think sports in this area has changed.
Okay.
Okay. And let me say it like this. Kids, I got to Fargo in 2015. I was in Bismarck before that for 3-4 years, or Mandan, but that area. And there was in Mandan at the time, or in Bismarck at the time. I'm sorry. There were two batting cages. One was in the golf dome, and then there was a small little one south on Airport Road that a buddy of mine knew that they had that he could use, but nobody really knew it was there. Those are the two indoor cages that I knew about. Some schools had drop down nets in their gym, everything else. But those are the two public cages that I knew about. Okay. So when I got to Fargo in 2015 or 14, the reason I came out here was to work at the ball yard. Mike had opened. There were 3-4 years. When I got done for playing for good, I didn't want anything to do with baseball. I'd been doing it for 23 years straight, tired, worn out, whatever. I wanted to get a job, relax, do some stuff. And then I got the itch again, found this place, came out here. In the past 7, 8 years, I've seen baseball change dramatically in this area. From guys viewing it as a hobby to guys viewing it as a way to maybe get some college paid for. I might be able to go to college and play baseball, okay? And not a small number, because there's always that small number of people that want to do that or want to do something. I've seen it explode, all right? So when I say it's the area, that's the kind of stuff that was happening nonstop in Houston.
Gotcha.
You had guys doing it all the time, all sports. Football's king down there. Okay, baseball's a hotbed for talent, but football's king. Okay, Friday Night Lights is real. Like, it's real down there. All right. And the work ethic's a bad way to say it. The amount of work that guys would put in down there when I was 10, 9. Like, I can remember taking ground balls 300 days a year. Now, we had the ability to because we were outside, right? We
Right.
had the weather to do it, right? But I can remember literally probably 300 days a year taking a ground ball, some form of ground ball, whether it was game, practice, on my own. Mom and dad had beaten ground balls at me. Hey, let's go to the field every day. You're starting to see a version of that creep up here because guys see it not necessarily as a way out, but I can go to college to do this. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's the smallest Division 19 junior college, right? The tiniest little school on the face of the earth that they have guys that have never played baseball in their life, but they have a team. You're still getting to play college baseball and you're getting an education. Guys see that and they want that. So I see guys starting to get more involved, trying to, and we're talking about one sport just because this is the sport that I'm involved in. We're seeing guys daily. When Mike was at his old building, it would be empty unless we were running a camp.
Gotcha.
It just, I'm starting to see it transgress north, I guess, in the baseball world. It's
Yeah.
starting to move into this area.
Yeah, I thought you'd bring a good perspective, a more well-rounded perspective. Again, coming from Texas, where everything's bigger in Texas, but yeah,
Yep.
Texas does have the reputation of producing a lot of professional athletes, but I wasn't
Right.
sure, if you'd seen it change. I guess when I say it, I feel like it's changed, is that it's exactly what you described there. I think athletics they become more serious, and
Oh, absolutely.
there's a lot of reasons why a mom or a dad don't introduce their kids to hunting. They moved from the city or country to the city. Maybe it's not as socially acceptable. Maybe they travel like crazy, but maybe there's just no time. And so that's kind of that piece of the pie that I'm looking at, is that, I remember I grew up in a small town. We played football. We put the cleats away, depending on how far we went into the postseason and into the tournament season, then all of a sudden it was basketball season. And we'd play basketball like crazy. Week or two later, we'd play baseball. That was it, right? In the summers, there were a few camps. You go to the open gym. But it felt like, at least where I'm from, it felt like if you missed practice to go deer hunting, right? The first week of deer hunting, I skipped college. All my classes in college to go home for deer hunting. It felt more acceptable. It felt more normal.
Right.
But now all these sports are year round. You see there's facilities like what you guys have. And I guess I don't know if those existed up north, when I was a kid, but I'd never heard of one. I never heard it anywhere. I never heard of anybody going to it. So the pressures to do these camps, my kids are in programs. They love it. So I'm not saying that they don't love it. But I think it's partly as a result of, if you want to be a casual athlete, the odds of you playing, at a high level in high school, certainly. But I think some of those pressures kick in even in middle school to be great.
Well, they absolutely do. We see kids all the time that, I should say I doing the individual lesson side, doing the one-on-ones with kids. I've had conversations, and they're hard conversations. I've had conversations with parents where I go, I don't know if I can do anything else with your kid. I don't know if I can. If you want to keep paying me to work with him because he likes coming in and he thinks it's helping him, I'm fine with that. But I'm telling you right now, I don't know if I can do any more with your kid. Now, I could be wrong. That kid could develop. I'm not trying to push him out of the sport. I'm just trying to give the parents an honest perspective. Okay. But when his 13U All-Star coach is 100% about putting a trophy on his work shelf so he can talk to his buddies about how they just won a tournament, that kid is going to feel massive pressure to want to be better because he's not going to be accepted. That's the biggest problem I have with all of that. Like, I have a rule with my team in the fall. Your boy played with us, okay? I don't care if you miss. You're still going to get playing time. This is about you playing. The fall's a little different for us because we're trying to just get guys out, get them to play good competition. I'll help you when I can. I'm going to give you advice when I can. If I see something mechanically, I'm going to talk to you about it. But you're in Bismarck, we're in Fargo. I'm not going to be able to work with him one-on-one the way that I would like to, but I can still talk to him. I can still give him something that I see. But if you want to go hunting, if you want to go to that college showcase, if you want to go to the football game, how am I supposed to tell you not to? You're a 17-year-old kid. Like, what am I going to do? No, bench you? If you're in the middle of a Legion season and you are committed to playing for that program, I understand it a little bit more because there is something to the commitment side of it. I get it a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I still think it's more about development than wins and losses. I'm not a big proponent of equal playing time. Okay, if you don't deserve to be on the field, then you probably shouldn't be on the field. Okay, but if I'm 100% in on the development side, I want to see you become the best player that you want to be. Not that you can be, that you want to be. And so, like, we get into this, we've talked about this before. The idea behind time, okay? Do I think kids need to be in here 7 days a week working on their craft? Not unless they want to be. If they want to be, fine, do it. Do I think that there's nothing wrong with being a very average athlete? No, absolutely. Some of my best friends in the world probably never made it onto a varsity team in any sport, but they're good people. Like, the idea behind wins and losses at a young age, I think, has changed sports, like, massively. Teach them how to develop them as a baseball player. Teach them how to play baseball. Then let them go create their own path. That's the way that I look at it.
No, that's good. Yeah, and you and I have talked about that player development versus collecting trophies, as a team or as I guess an association, organizing that sport. What are some of the, one of the conversations that I've heard, a lot at the ballpark are the value of travel teams. So like in baseball and volleyball, my daughter plays volleyball. There's, I guess the one travel team that I've never heard of is football. But I suppose that's just a more taxing sport on your body, but soccer
Right.
has it. All of them have it. So when some of these, like baseball locally here, travel teams start at 9U, right? And so they're traveling every weekend. They're having one or two practices. That takes a huge toll on the family. Now, it's also some of the best family time you can spend.
Yes.
Captive audience with your kid in a hotel room. Those are memories that I would never trade, and I'm assuming no one else would trade that. But I guess if we're bringing this back into the context of you can only do one thing, you make a choice of what to do with your time, you can only do that one thing. And so if you're a family who hunts or hunting or the outdoors, camping, boating, fishing is something that's important to your family, do you have any advice for the listener on, those maybe with kids right now? How do you navigate that travel versus player development?
Find the right program. And a lot of times that's not available. It's not. Okay. Like, a lot of these a lot of the cities, you have whatever your baseball program is. Then you have your Babe Ruth age program. Then you have your Legion program. And that's it. So if you want to do something else, I don't know what to tell you. Because if you want to play baseball, you have to play that. That's the only option that you have. Okay. Like, and I think Mike does a good job of that here in the fall, because we offer travel teams that will. It's more geared for the serious players, the guys that want to get out, hopefully get seen, play some good competition in the fall. Then we have a fall league that is designed for what you're talking about. You put your own team together. You play every Sunday. There's no restriction at all. Usually it's a dad just writing a lineup, making sure nobody gets hurt, and then you go play baseball. But you have to find the right program that fits your style or what you want. What's tough about that up here is a lot of times it's not available. It's just not there. And I go back to the idea of introduce your kids to everything. Okay. And if they want to be good at baseball or football or volleyball, like, I'm looking at two girls, and as much as I love them to death, my oldest one will trip over air. I doubt that she's going to be right now, a massive athlete. Fine. Find something you love. Find two things you love, and then start figuring out what path you want to take. It's always the hard part. We get that question a lot. Like, and I try my best, especially in the fall, because I know hunting's so big up here. We had a kid, not this year, last year, had an opportunity to go. I think his old man drew an elk tag somewhere, and kid wanted to go with him. I was like, "Why are you telling me go, or why are you asking? Tell me. Like, this opportunity of a lifetime. Yeah, you're gonna miss a weekend of baseball, but you kidding me? If that was me, I wouldn't be here. We'd have somebody else filling in for me coaching. I promise you. And I love doing what I do, but I'm out. Like, it's just a matter of give and take. You got to find your own path. You got to find what's going to work.
So do you have any advice for families, for players on how do you even approach that conversation with your coach, with your teacher?
Again, that's hard. So I think this is where I see, and I don't want to blast any coaches, okay? I think most coaches, it's the idea that every police officer is bad. 99% of police officers are good people. Then you get one guy that ruins it for everybody, okay? Coaches they're getting paid. 9 out of 10 of them are getting paid, all right? But they do a lot of work that doesn't account for the pay that they make, all right? I'm not trying to say all coaches are bad. That's not what I'm getting at. It is very hard for I will go the top end, 17-year-old kid right before adulthood to walk up to a coach who he knows is going to get pissed at him and go, I don't think I can make it this weekend because I have this opportunity. What my advice would be is do it anyway. Go have a conversation, be respectful. We get into this on the mechanical side all the time. I'll be one of the other instructors, somebody will be getting somewhere teaching a kid something mechanically that might not be getting taught at his school or his Legion program or Babe Ruth or whatever. And they will tell us, because we have that kind of relationship with most of our clients. We have a personal type relationship. They'll tell us, if I go to my coach and say that we're doing this, he's going to get mad. I'm like, do it anyway. Go tell him. Stand up, talk, be respectful, say this is working. Can I try, or this is working, I'm going to try this, watch it, and, but be respectful about it. The problem is you do that to most coaches. I shouldn't say most. That'll get me in trouble. You do that to some coaches, they're going to punish you and call you uncoachable. Even though you're going to them with something that you were taught and coached, they're going to call you uncoachable because it's not their way. So the best advice I have for kids or parents or whatever, one, as a parent, do your best to let your kid handle it. It'll help grow. They'll grow. They straight will grow. Two, if they can't handle it, it's okay to step in. Just be respectful about it. But you and me have talked. You came to me with wanting your boy to do something, and I went, yep, let's do it. Great. And it worked out. That's fine. And now we're doing this. When a lot of coaches would have looked at you and went, no, this is my program. This is how I'm running it. No. And you came to me insanely respectful about it. The problem is not always the kid. It's the coach sometimes, which people don't like to hear. If a kid comes to you and is respectful about it, one, is showing you that they're growing as a human. Two, they're being respectful. You need to listen. Three, what's the worst case scenario? They miss a weekend of your team trying to win another state championship? Who cares? Fine. Then put somebody else in a spot. And then when he doesn't perform, let him back in. Or just understand that he's a human being and he needs to be able to do what he's going to do. That's my best advice.
Yeah, I think it is that slippery slope. What you said there, where you're from, I guess the trend of looking to college athletics sounds like that's unchanged in your lifetime, at least down in Texas. But up here,
That hasn't.
So that being an emerging trend here, I think that is a lot of pressure for families, for kids to face going, okay, if we take the family vacation, if we go on the hunting trip, boy or girl, they're going to miss a week of practice. They're going to miss a couple games. They're going to come back. They're not going to play, which, hey, if you don't aspire towards being a college athlete, who cares?
Right.
But I think that's the pressure that people make. And I guess, it does kind of bring me back. I feel like when I ask myself, what's the best age to introduce someone to hunting? I have a standard answer. I lived it. And this would be my advice to you with your kids. You didn't ask for it, but my goal was that my kids never remembered a time where they didn't remember going hunting for the first time. That was my goal.
Right.
That when they look back on it and say, geez, I always hunted. It's always part of my life, right? So then now I feel like with my kids, and they're in that pressure of friends and sports and, looking at jobs, and the hunting time is going to be less and less. But they are hunters. And so when they get through that real deep bottleneck, or if they end up being college athletes, whatever, they can look back and say, I'm a hunter. Now I have time. Now those other activities, sports are going to leave. Unless you turn it into a profession, everybody's going to play their last day of sports.
It's a conversation I have with almost every human that I work with. Baseball, softball, what lifting, training, whatever. Someday somebody's going to take the uniform off your back. It's just the simple fact of it. You could make 15 million a year in the big leagues for 15 years. But at some point somebody's going to take the uniform off your back. What are you going to fall back on when that happens? You going to go 9 to 5? Do you have an education? Do you have hobbies? Because if you don't have those things, you have idle hands at that point. There's like you could fall into despair. You could find your love at that point, but you could go down the other way and it not work out. But that's an insanely true statement that I have with almost every client. Probably every client that I work with. Someday somebody's going to take the jersey off your back. Now, can you look in the mirror and go, I gave it everything that I wanted to give it? If that answer is yes, and I'm not talking about working all the time. Did you do what you wanted to do in the sport as far as your own personal ability, your work, what you wanted to do, work ethic wise? If you did, great job. And you have these other things that you do, now you can fall back on those. Like I wasn't going down that path, and that was my own choosing. It wasn't my parents, it wasn't coach. That was my own choice. I wanted to be good at baseball. And when I was a freshman, I had a really good idea that I had a shot to be good at the sport. So everything really took a back burner. I was lucky enough that when I got into college, I found a group of guys that they were doing something that interested me, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. It was being out in the wilderness. It was being out in the woods. It was being in a stand. It was hanging out with guys telling stories. It wasn't out on the street. So I was fortunate that way.
Yeah, I think as parents, there's a couple things that jump up here is one, let's build well-rounded kids.
Right.
Sports are awesome. I played a ton, loved it. I hunted, fished. I was able to maintain all of those things, but build well-rounded kids. So and if if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably into the outdoors. Otherwise, you're probably not super interested in it. So yeah, I would say find time, inside that busy baseball schedule, inside that busy football or volleyball or softball schedule, find those moments. There are those, long weekends I guess for North Dakota this weekend, there's Thursday, Friday off, teacher's break. Yep. So, those are great times. Kids will remember those things. And I always have to remind myself at times, childhood memories seem bigger, more legendary than adult memories. And so get them out once or twice.
I tell stories about going to the Astrodome when I was probably 6, in a preseason game watching Nolan Ryan in the bullpen. It sounded like the Astrodome was going to explode. Listening to the ball hit the mitt. I doubt it sounded that loud, but when you're 6, you're going to remember that for the rest of your life.
Yep. So yeah, I would. So let's not underestimate. When your kids, when you take them hunting for the first time, they might not remember it. They might, but boy, my early memories, and I don't think it takes that many. So I don't think the children don't have to be avids. They don't have to have to love it just the exact same way that we do, but just to provide those early experiences. The other side, this one I've never really heard too many people talk about. So I'm in this thing where I want my kids to hunt and I want them to play sports as long as they want to. But I have a selfish ulterior motive for my kids being in athletics. And it might surprise you, it might not. For me, I love sports so much that it forced me to make good decisions. I was able to see when I was a freshman, I remember some juniors or seniors getting caught drinking. And so they were out for 6 weeks. So at my school, if you got an underage drinking, you were out of athletics for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. That's an entire baseball season, frankly, in North Dakota, almost. And so I never wanted to, I made up for it in college, but I didn't go out drinking and I didn't do those things in high school because I didn't want to miss out on the sports.
Right.
That is my secret selfish motivation for my kids. is that if they're in sports, they have that pressure to make good decisions, good grades, hang out with good friends, don't go drinking, don't do drugs, because I could take it all away. It can all go away. But now we're into the slippery slope, Patrick, where if you're in a bigger town, bigger city, if you want to keep playing sports all the way through high school, you probably need to be pretty good at it, right?
Yeah.
Because cuts are going to start happening in a lot of sports.
See, and this is also, what are we in, 2023? Wow, this is 20 years ago when I graduated. I graduated in '03. Um, we did things a little bit differently because we had my freshman tryout, we had 126 kids try out for a baseball team. And we had three teams, a varsity, a JV, and then a freshman sophomore team. Okay. So if you were on the bottom end of your sophomore class, I was the first sophomore in school history to make varsity. So if you were on the bottom end of your sophomore class, but you were good enough to be on the team, you were on the freshman sophomore team. So that limits, I think we had six on probably a 25-man roster, 22-man roster, somewhere in there. So you're limiting your spots to 15, 16, 17 kids out of 125. Okay. And they cut as freshmen. If you made the team, you're pretty much on the team through your senior year. You may not get playing time. You may ask to be a manager, but I don't remember a ton of cuts. So there, down there, at least at my school, the cream of the crop kind of came to the top. Like it just, you found out real early on if you were going to play high school sports, you're going to play high school baseball. And then there's a rare occasion of we had a kid that got cut his freshman year, undersized, worked his butt off in the offseason, came back, made the team his sophomore year, JV his junior year, started in left field for us our senior year, ended up playing college baseball somewhere. Okay. You see that happens. But up here, I see it all the time where the kids have pressure on themselves to make a freshman team, even though they may not necessarily have the talent yet to do it or the size to do it or whatever. And then they kind of miss out on other opportunities. I see it all the time, or they give up a sport that they are really good at, or can be a really good varsity player, can be a good high school player. Okay, to play another sport or a third or a fourth sport, just to kind of do it, which is there's nothing wrong with that, but then you start seeing the pressures come in
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we want you to play this sport because you're a good athlete. You need to come out here, and then they don't play. Well, now all of a sudden I'm sitting my butt on the bench for 12 weeks in the fall, working my ass off, and what did I get to show for it? Like that, I think pressures on kids now are insane. They're crazy. It's nuts. The time that is expected of them is absolutely insane.
Well, yeah, and that's where the choices are made, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I think my words that I'm about to say are directed at parents. They are directed at coaches. Just remember, and it's so hard. It's so hard for me to even say this, but there's more to life than a sport. There's more to life than hunting. There's more to life than picket, right? And for a particular coach, it's their job, man, and take it seriously. Wins are important. I don't even think I can thread this needle, Patrick. But it's that tough thing is just for parents to keep their minds open, for coaches to keep their minds open. If someone comes to you and say, "Hey, I'm going to go on a trip with my family," man, family time. You're gonna snap your fingers and your kids are gonna be gone. That family time is so valuable, right? And to stay home and not go on vacation because of one practice on a Sunday, right? It's just
So I have an example of that. When I first moved back to Fargo, I wanted to get back into baseball, and there was a job opening for an organization at an all-star level. And I was like, yeah, I'll go apply, and got hired and took a team. And I had a rule book. If you miss games, you have to sit. That doesn't mean you are going to be benched after that. It means you're going to get the same amount of playing time that everybody else does. You're going to get to compete and everything else. But if you miss games, you have to sit because you're committed to what we're doing. Okay. And I had a kid call me and go, "Hey, I have this opportunity to go to an AAU basketball tournament." but it's going to come over this weekend where we have a tournament, baseball tournament. I'm like, good for you, because he was a big basketball guy. Like, good for you, go do it. I was like, when you get back, you got to sit a game, but nothing major. The kid ended up quitting baseball because I sat him for one game. And as a coach, that hurt me because I'm trying to just instill a little bit of, I don't know, just reliability. And then tell him that you're okay missing this. It's a great opportunity for you to do it. You're just going to sit a game. And we come to find out it wasn't the kid, it was the parents that got mad. And the parents couldn't handle it. Then I had a kid, and his dad used to be the head coach at NDSU for baseball. They made it to a regional that year. Same thing. Came to me, hey, I'm going to the regional. Absolutely. Go. Please. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity. When you get back, you're going to have to sit a game. Came back, sat. Me and the dad went out and had a beer afterwards. He was perfectly fine with it because he understood what the idea was. It's just it's a different perspective, and it's an understanding that, do I put rules in place for a reason? Yes. Will I ever hold it against you personally? No. You're still going to get the opportunity to play. A lot of kids don't get that. A lot of kids feel, and they're probably not wrong, that a coach is taking it personally. And so I think we as coaches need to do a better job of getting these kids to understand that it's not personal.
Right.
You're still part of it.
I like what you said there, and so I'm going to say be like Patrick in the sense that you clearly communicated. You didn't take it personally. You're like, hey, here's just the way it is. There's other things out there. There's other choices, other things you can do. It's all about choices. And the way that we transact here is if you miss a tournament, you miss a game, you're going to sit one time, and then you're back in. Right now, you're back with everybody else. And I think for a lot of people, families would probably take that trade all the time. Not all the time. They would take that trade when those exceptional opportunities came up. But I think that fear of, if we miss it, they're never going to play again, right?
Right.
So you're almost held prisoner. And again, in the context of you're going to play your last day of sports at some point, have a well-rounded life, a well-rounded childhood. And I think that's the tough thing. You're right. Just a lot of pressures on people, on kids nowadays. And as a result, I do think, being in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, camping, that one seems to stick all the way through. But, those are activities that will take a back seat. And
yes, unless it's something that you love doing, those are the types of things that you see go by the wayside. And it sucks. Like, me and my wife got it. Her family's extreme outdoors. Like, her dad was part of the Nature Conservancy. I think he ran part of it for a while. Her brother's in South Dakota doing the same kind of thing. They just got back from Alaska doing a caribou hunt the hard way, drove up there, they're all about the outdoors. Okay. And that got ingrained to her. Me and her go camping. We tent. We do the fun parts. But it's because it's something that we like doing.
right.
And when we have time, we do that kind of stuff. We enjoy it.
Well, that is the thing. And I do think at the end of the day, not everyone, I think push come to shove, everybody's a hunter. I really do. I think, if you're in the face of starvation, I think most people are going to grab a gun and harvest something so they can live.
You're going to eat. You're going to find a way to eat.
Yep. But in today's world, it's all about choices. You can go to the grocery store, but there's a select few. Matter of fact, a recent report came out about 6% of the U.S. population hunts. That's it. 94% don't. And so 6% of the U.S. population says, I love it enough. I'm going to buy a license. I'm going to buy some shells or some archery tackle, and I'm going.
That goes back to what we started with. That sounds low to me because I'm around people that hunt. But the numbers don't lie. Just in my brain, that sounds low.
Yeah, it does sound
I'm around
crazy.
A bunch of people that do it.
Yeah, I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who love hunting, love sports. I guess that's who I choose to hang out with. And as a result, it's like, there's no way that's true. But you travel around the world a little bit, or the United States at least, and I guess you live that. You see it. Patrick, man, you've given me an hour. Flew by.
It's been fun, man.
Yeah, it has been. I really appreciate it. You do bring a unique perspective. I do admire you. in that, you know, you're in the meat of raising your kids with your wife. You gave that credit to her. I'm going to do it too. Um, and I should give that credit to my wife. And we should all give credit to our spouses that are pulling their extra weight.
Good way to live.
It is a good way. But I appreciate you taking the time, giving us your perspective. You know, maybe some adults with high school athletes or upcoming athletes have given some things for people to think about. But I think at the end of the day, you know, if you love hunting, find a way to get out there. If you love the outdoors, find a way to get out there. Get out with your kids. Remember, you take them once, that memory will be so much bigger and richer, and it'll grow over time. And so don't underestimate the value of just getting your kids out a couple times. And
Absolutely.
And for me, get out as early as you can.
Yep. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you.
So I have to admire, in parting comments, I admire, such a dedicated and committed athlete. I do admire what some call adult onset hunters. It sounds like a disease, but, you took that on in your 20s, it sounds like, and you've
Yep.
maintained it, and in your busy life, you've reserved a spot for hunting. So you can be a high level athlete and a hunter at the same time.
You can. You just have to want it. You got to make it work.
Right on. So for the listener, if anybody has any questions for Patrick, I'll have them funnel it through me. But if anybody has any questions or thoughts or just want to, shoot the breeze, ask you some questions, do you mind if I pass anything
Absolutely
on
not. That's fine with me.
Right on. All right. Well, hope you find a big buck this weekend, and appreciate your time.
Absolutely, buddy.
All right. Take care,
Anytime.
Patrick.